TV, the hate that hate produced. You know, 1960s also, February 1st, the SNCC, you know, the sit-ins down in Greensboro. So all this stuff is affecting me. That's my generation.
But you didn't join any of these movements. You decided to make your sword out of your pen.
Well, I was the president of the Fair Play, or the chairman of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee when I was in.
Oh, you were. Okay.
Oh yeah, and then also we had supported Robert Williams in a lot of ways that you know, the police did not like or would not like. But anyway, I was getting very political, and even the question when a group of artists came together, because we had been meeting to find out, black artists, what can we do? Here we are down here in Bohemia, so-called, down here in the village, but the movement is all around us, and it's you know, and that's when we began to think about putting together an organization of artists that would take the art as seriously as any other aspect of liberation. That was when we began to talk about it when we were down in the village. But we moved, right after Malcolm was murdered, we moved to Harlem.
How much focus did you give to making a living at what you did? In other words, was it frightening to be an artist, quote unquote, as far as how you're going to make a living?
Not to me.
Scare you at all? No?
No, because first of all, I guess I had never thought about it like that. You know, the hungriest I've ever been, to tell the truth, was at Howard, you know, when I was a student. And I always think, and maybe that's my petty bourgeois background, I always thought that, you know, I was going to make it some kind of way, whatever I had to do, even if I had to get a pistol and a stocking cap and go rob the A&P. I never thought of myself as being somehow bereft because of these people. You know, I thought that I would prevail one way or another. I never questioned that. And so even when, you know, uptight, one gets uptight, I never doubted my ability or capacity to deal with it. So when we went uptown to Harlem, I still had some little money from the theater, remember? And because Dutchman had opened a couple of years before that and was still, you know, I still have this little rep downtown. But that was one of the things, as I said many times, that opened my eyes the night that that play opened, and I went and read all those papers, and I could see they thought I was crazy, you know, this crazy man, all this language, all this black thing. Yeah, look, because there used to be a lot of newspapers in New York.
They panned your...
They didn't pan it. They said he was nuts. You said he was violent and nuts. I mean, they were saying two things at one time. They're saying, this play will scare the hell out of you. They would do so and so and so. But this man with that profanity and that, you know, that mad anti-whiteness and so forth and so on, you know, he's crazy. So then when I read that, I said, they're going to make me famous, so they're going to pay for it.
You know what this means.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Time for another break.
Yeah, I thought it meant that we black.
No, that's this, no, see? Not this. I want to ask you what is perhaps an overly simplistic question, but how do you feel about this country?
This country? Well, it's my country, you know. I mean, I'm an Afro-American. I was born and raised in this country. You know, my people all the way back raised in this country. Like Paul Robeson say, hey, we helped build this country for free. So, you know, in a sense, I claim this country. Black people claim this country. That's why that stuff with Bush, you know, that the bushwhacking that we just got, the ripoff in Florida, which violates the Emancipation Proclamation as well as the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That's why this is so ugly and tragic that the only black vote in the United States counted is Tom S. Clarence. I mean, that's incredible to me that one black vote, and that Bush has the nerve to walk around a counterfeit president for a fake democracy. I mean, that's my view.
So despite the fact that you spent decades ranting and railing at this country, you still love this country?
Hey, if I didn't, I would go. I would leave. I would split. But we have as much, you know, the 40 or 50 million of black people Afro, we have as much claim to this country as anybody, you know. And the consciousness, once I had gone to Harlem, the black arts movement, come back home to Newark, did the political work, married my wife. We had, you know, 5 children. Raz, you know, my second son, he came out of Howard and wanted to run for mayor. He ran for mayor the minute he got out of Howard. I mean, I don't mean years later. I mean, the minute he graduated, The next year, he was running for mayor at 20, whatever. To me, that's the consciousness of trying to change this. And that's what black people have always been about. It's not that, you know, we want to change this. We want equal rights. That's all. We want democracy and self-determination. We don't want to put anybody in no tricks. We don't want to, you know, exploit anybody, you know. But we have a lot of different ways of looking at that, and that's what we have to deal with, is the question of unity of our views without claiming to be monolithic. Like my wife and I argue about politics more aggressively than most people do. You understand? Yet at the same time, Amin and I know exactly that we want to transform this. And the people that I've loved the most in this country and think the most about are people who have the same vision, that this must be changed. You know, that the world, you know, Du Bois said, hey, at the beginning of the 20th century, there wasn't enough food and clothing and capacity in terms of our own engineering skills, and so that everybody on the planet could live like kings. But the little narrow-minded racist scoundrels that actually control the world cannot understand that. You know, they cannot understand that. And so the question of self-determination first. We must do what is necessary for us to do. That's Malcolm again. And democracy,
He had quite an impact on you, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where does Africa come into your artistic lenses?
Well, Africa, I think, really began to hit me with the Lumumba thing.
Patrice Lumumba.
Patrice Lumumba assassination, you know. And that's where I met, strangely enough, I met Askia Touré, who at the time was Roland Snellings. I met Larry Neal. And at first when we met, we didn't even know specifically we were poets. We didn't, you know, we came together actually to try to destroy the Metropolitan Opera when they kill Lumumba. Because that was infuriating, you know. I mean, because, you know, in line with the whole civil rights kind of thinking that was proceeding at that time, you know, which was about to change, you know, because Malcolm and Fidel had come on the scene, SNCC had come on the scene, you know, to see that independence had been achieved, and then they would snatch it back, just like they'd done with Kabila. You know, they've been in Kabila's, it's interesting, they've been on Kabila, gee, that's the same name as Malcolm's daughter who was in trouble, similar. But Kabila, since he laid out what he wanted to do, you know, the kind of populist, kind of people's democracy that he wanted, they have not ceased to be on it. Now here's Mobutu, the bloodiest, most backward, you know, Negro on the planet, perfectly cool with him all these years. Everything's cool, you know, as long as he gives them Union Minaire, Rockefeller and them, gives them access to the riches.
We had a program on Zaire and came up with a clip of Malcolm back then talking with such clarity about what was going on in what was then called the Congo. What kind of a person? You knew Malcolm.
Yes.
What kind of a person was he?
Well, I met Malcolm one time, and we sat and talked 6, 7 hours up in the Waldorf Astoria with Mohammed Babu.
Tell me what energy did you get from him? What kind of energy?
Well, the two of the greatest people I met in my life, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Malcolm died a month after I met him. Dr. King died 10 days later.
Oh, Jesus.
And what it was that they both said the same thing to me, which is what I know Kwame Ture and I have been saying, even though we've never agreed on a lot of things, the question of the united front. And that's what Malcolm kept saying. He kept telling me that. He said, rather than you, because, you know, I was playing super left at the time, you know, oh, these Negroes are no good. No. Saying, rather than you hostilizing all these people, you know, and putting all these people down, you shouldn't be trying to get away from the ACP. You should be trying to get in ACP. See, that was when he was in OAAU. And he was talking, and you already met Babu. Babu was one of the most astute politicians in Africa, which is why he's no longer there. You know, a great man, a learned man, you know.
Yeah. Time for another one of these.
Okay.
Not this.
Not this.
This. In your career as a craftsperson and as an onlooker to this this life. What do you see now today? How do you feel about the movement, if any, of our people in this country? Are you encouraged? And especially, how do you feel about the young people and what their values are and where they're headed?
Well, my wife Amiri and I have been in the movement. You know, I mean, when I got back to Newark, met her married, we created the Spirit House, you know, trying to bring politics and art together like the art. And then the Committee for Unified Newark, the Congress of African People, we elected Gibson mayor, we elected Sharp James. And it's always a question of nothing is direct. It's always, you know, there's always uneven development. There's always going to be, I mean, the old is always going to give you trouble with the new. You're always going to have that struggle. So I think that like seeing my youngest children, like, you know, Raz is running for council in 2002. His brother Midi is the mayor's aide in Newark, you know. Son Obalaji heads up a recreational program. A little child, Shani, is a school teacher, you know what I mean? They all see and understand, to whatever extent they've developed, that this thing is evil and needs to be changed. I think what's happening, though, we're getting some kind of broader maturity. Now, this recent Bush thing has, I think, taught a lot of Americans, not only black folks whose pocket they picked, but they picked these white people's pockets too, you know, in ways that maybe they would not think was possible before. And I think that even though we've taken a hard shot, that was a battle we lost. That's the Civil War going on. The Civil War is going on. Just like the Reconstruction was destroyed after we thought we were coming out of slavery and they threw us back, so that after the Civil Rights Movement, a lot of people thought the Civil Rights Movement meant, you know, like all of these right-wing Negroes saying, everything is cool now. The Civil Rights Movement, you don't have to talk about black now. They just showed you that's a lie. You see, they showed you that's a lie. And all these liberals like Nader and them who thought, you know, I'm going to run independent, not thinking about labor, not thinking about black people who delivered the thing to Bush. It means that the movement now has to stand back and sum up what's going on.
And where does the art fit into this?
The art, for me, is the way I speak, the way I make my points, the way I want to say it. Now, obviously...
Are the arts keeping up with the movement in this country?
The fact is this, that the arts have to create their own voice, their own vehicles, you see. If you think that you're going to put a play in the theater and you're telling the theater owners die and they're going to put that on, you're crazy. Or if you think that they're going to publish your book and the book says, all you people who own these things need to be locked up, they're not going to do that. The point is that we, the people who feel oppressed, the people who feel exploited, black people obviously, but minorities obviously, Americans who have any consciousness of any nationality, obviously, you're going to have to put together your own alternative superstructure. You're going to, if you want to write books, you're going to have to create the mechanism for writing those books. My books are poetry, and you know, I've got maybe 10 books unpublished in my house.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, publishers don't even bother me, except small publishers. But you have to be able and willing to understand that you have to produce that yourself, that you don't have the luxury of sitting back and saying, well, my publisher's going to come and is going to give me a $1.3 million advance. You know what I mean? I mean, the advances that I could get from a publisher are so pitiful that I would be justified hitting them in the head with a stick. You know what I mean? It's not even, it doesn't even, so in many ways it's better for me to publish my own works, put them on the net, or in the 27 cities where black people live, are either a majority or a plurality, to find ways to distribute those in those 27 cities, to find ways to take theater to those 27 cities. You know the 27 cities where you've got relatives. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. The last question. What do you say to young would-be writers? Anything?
What I say to them is don't wait for anybody. Write your stuff, get it out. If you think you're good enough, you know, and you're not good enough if you think everything you write is good. No. If you're not giving yourself a report card on your work, because anybody could do a good them poem. You know, I could write a good me poem anytime I want to, but it'll just be a shell, you see. So you have to get to the point where you actually can discern your real stuff from your fake real stuff, you know. And then you have to publish it yourself. You cannot wait for some publisher who wants to turn you into what they see as, you know, optimum, maximum. You have to go for yourself.
On that note, we do have to stop. We're out of time. But thank you for this.
Great. Gee, that went fast.
For transcripts, send $4 to Like It Is, 800 All News, 1535 Grand Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. For rush service, call 1-800-ALL-NEWS or visit their website at www.800-all-news.com.